Here we are at 4.5, writing a function rule. So remember, function again, it means 1x in gives you 1y out. For every value you put in, you get one value out. So this topic we've done with one variable, but now you're going to have two variables. You're going to have an equation. So this involves two variables. To find both, identify the pattern of what is happening between them and write an equation. So we need to write an equation for C is 8 more than half of n. So we have C, and just go through it. Is, remember, means equal to. 8 more means that you are adding 8 to something. Right? So if you're 8 more, you'd add 8. If you were 8 less, you would subtract 8. So we're 8 more than something. That something is half of n, right? So half of n. So we could do half of n would be one option. The other option is we could have had C is 8 more, so we're adding 8 to something. The other way to do a half would be to divide by 2. So you could have taken n divided by 2. So C is 8 more than half of n. C is 8 more than half of n. There's two ways that you could write that. All right, 2.5 more than. So we want to be 2.5 more than. So we're adding 2.5 to something. So we're adding 2.5 to the quotient of h and 3. So 2.5 more than the quotient means we are dividing h and 3. Right? So we've got 2.5 more than, so we're adding 2.5 to. The quotient is division of h and 3. Is means equal to, and you're equal to w. So 2.5 more than the quotient of h and 3 is w. That would be our equation. So you've done this with one or two variables, but now it is an equation, right? So you're going to have an equation. All right, so let's start looking at this. A kennel charges $15 per day to board dogs. That's probably important. $15 a day to board dogs. Upon arrival, each dog must have a flea bath that costs $12. So a flea bath has cost of $12. Write a function rule for the total cost for n days of boarding plus a bath. How much a day does a 10-day stay cost? So that's the second part. So we want a function rule for the total cost, right? So we can call the total cost C. So C equals, based on the number of days, n. So we're going to have n. Well, it's $15 per day plus that $12 flea bath. Now, they only had the flea bath once, right? So it would be $15 per day would be 15n. So if you're 1 day, you're at $15. 2 days is $30. 3 days is $45. But everyone needs a one-time flea bath, which costs $12. So we have to add $12 to that cost. Now, you don't multiply 12 by n because the dog is not getting a bath every day. It's just one bath. So you take 15 times the number of days and then add 12 to that. So that is our function rule. Then once you have the function rule, you can figure out any situation. So we say, how much does a 10-day stay cost? Right? You can figure out a 20-day, a 6-day, a 2-day now that you have your function. So if it's a 10-day, well, n is our number of days, so we replace n with 10, right? So 10 goes in for n. So the cost of 10 days would be cost equals 15 times 10, and then we would add 12. So we go order of operations, we would multiply first, so 15 times 10 is 150. So then 150 plus 12 tells us that the cost for 10 days is going to be 162. Right? So this is a word problem. It needs a label. So 10 days would be $162. Let's look at another one. A landfill has 50,000 tons of waste in it. That sounds disgusting. Each month, it accumulates an average of 420 more tons of waste. What is a function rule that represents the total amount of waste after m months? Right? So we want to do total amount of waste. They didn't give us a variable, so I'm going to just call it W, waste, after m months. So we're using m over here. So the landfill already has 50,000 tons in it, and it gets 420 more tons every month. Ew. All right, so it already has 50,000, right? That's the starting point, 50,000. So then we keep adding to that 50,000, 420 more per month, which would be M, right? So we have 50,000 plus 420 M. The 50,000 does not get the M because that is what is constant. There's already 50,000 there. And then you keep adding 420 tons of waste to it each month. So then if I want to figure out what they're going to have next month, after 1 month, I'd plug in 1. If I want to know what's going to be there in 27 months, I would plug in 27. If I wanted to find out what's there in 36 months, which would be 3 years, I would plug in 36. So then I could use that equation to find any situation. All right, concert revenue. A concert seating plan is shown below. Reserve seating is sold out. Total revenue from ticket sales will depend on the number of general seating tickets sold. Write a function rule to represent this situation. What is the maximum possible total revenue? All right, so it told me that the reserve seating is sold out, right? So this red seating is sold out. So I've already made all of the money from that. So I got to figure out how much money that actually is. Well, it's $25 per seat. I got to know how many seats there are. Well, if there's 10 rows of 12 seats, that would be 10 times 12. That means that there are 120 seats here, right? 120 seats. So I can look and see I'm selling those 120 seats at $25 a pop. So if I want to know how much money I'm going to make from that, 120 times 25, I'm making $3,000 from this section right here. Because if I have 120 seats and they are $25 each, 120 times 25 is $3,000. All right, so now I've got this general seating here, and I'm selling those at $10, and I don't know how much I'm going to sell. So I know my revenue is going to equal, well, I've already sold all of my red seats, so I've already made $3,000. So I've made my $3,000 plus I'm going to make $10 per every general seat I sell here, right? So I'm going to make $10 per every general seat that I sell in the yellow section. So that would be my function rule, right? I've already made $3,000 and I'm going to get $10 for every general admission seat that I sell. Well, so there's my function rule, right? A function rule to represent this situation. What is the maximum possible total revenue? If I'm going to make the most money, I'm going to have to sell all of these tickets, right? If I want to make the most money, I have to sell all of those tickets. Well, I have 30 rows of 16 seats. So 30 rows, right, times 16 seats per row. 30 times 16, there are 480 seats here. There are 480 seats. So if I'm going to make the most money possible, I have to sell all 480 of those tickets, right? So I would sell 480 of those tickets. So to make the most possible total revenue, my revenue would equal, I sold out the reds, so I made my $3,000 there. And I'm going to have to figure out how much I make when I sell out my yellows. So I'd have 10 times selling all of those tickets, which is 480 tickets. Right, so order of operations, I'd multiply first. So my revenue equals my $3,000 plus $10 for 480 tickets is $4,800. So when I add those together, 3,000 plus 4,800 would be 7,800. So what was the question? What is the maximum possible total revenue? Well, the most money that could be made from selling all of the seats would be $7,800. All right, let's look at one more. Geometry. Write a function rule for the area of a rectangle whose length is 5 feet more than its width. What is the area of the rectangle when its width is 9 feet? All right, well, let's look at this. So we have a rectangle. I'll actually just draw a rectangle here. Yay, rectangle. So we're going to do area. So you might want to think in the back of your head, what is the area of a rectangle? Area equals length times width. Let me make that a cursive L so it doesn't look like a 1. All right, so whose length is 5 feet more than its width. So we don't know what the width is. So the width would be W, and the length is 5 feet more than the width, which is W. So I have to write 5 feet more than W. Well, 5 feet more would be adding 5 to the width, which is W. So the width is W, the length is W plus 5 because it's 5 more than the width. All right, so now that we know that, we could write our function. Area equals W times W plus 5. That would be our function rule. The width times W plus 5 is the length. Second part, what is the area of the rectangle when its width is 9? Well, if its width is 9, then that means the length is 9 plus 5, right? So we'd have area equals, the width is 9, making the length 9 plus 5. Well, we know that 9 plus 5 would be 14. So the area would be 9 times 9 plus 5 makes the length 14. So then I just have to figure out what is 9 times 14. So that would be 126. So what is the area of the rectangle when its width is 9 feet squared? It would be 126 feet squared. And that is how you write function rules that have 2 variables.